Good afternoon, everyone. Today is August 20th, 2026. I'm going to read the standard opening that we have here about, please note that the meeting is being recorded and will be available shortly hereafter for scheduled and on-demand viewing on any smartphone or tablet device. If anyone else is recording the meeting, including the use of AI note-taking apps, please notify the chair. Pursuant
Stephen Buckley is recording the meeting via AI.
Okay, Sarah, thank you. Pursuant to Governor Healy's March 28, 2025 signing of Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 extending certain COVID-19 measures adopted during the state of emergency, suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law until June 30th, 2027, this meeting of the Chatham Zoning Board of Appeals is being conducted in person and via remote participation. Every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceeding as provided for in the order. A reminder that persons who would like to listen to this meeting while in progress may do so by calling the phone number 508-945-4410. Conference ID is 717-865-758 and the pound sign. Or you can join the meeting online via Microsoft Teams through the link in the posted agenda. While this is a live broadcast and simulcast on Chatham TV, which is Xfinity Channel 1072, despite our best efforts, we may not be able to provide real-time access. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website as soon as possible. So today, we are hearing application 25077, which is 0 in Meeting House Road. Okay. I thought it might be helpful to just go over the order of the meeting today. I wanted to actually first thank Penrose and their counsel, Mr. Singer, for your participation in this process and your professionalism throughout the process. I also want to thank the board. I want to thank Sarah and Town Council, Jay Tallerman, who I know is on the line, and Jay Briggs, our building commissioner, for their efforts and their attentiveness throughout this process, which has actually been a year, August 2025. Today is August 20th, 2026. So they have been very helpful to the board, and I want to thank the board for all of your time and your efforts in reading and preparing for what is a very important project and hearings. I also want to clarify today that everyone should understand and knows that the hearing is closed. We did this on August 6th. This means that no letters or comments that we have received since August 6th we aren't reading them, we aren't hearing them, we aren't presenting those. So today, the board only will be deliberating. No public comments, and we will be sharing our final comments about the project and any conditions that we may have. And we can also, it's my understanding that we can vote today, or we could vote at the next hearing, but I wanted to clarify that with Mr. Tallerman. And I also wanted to, because it wasn't in the agenda, that's the main clarification, Jay, I just wanted to make sure that we as a board understood what that option was for voting. And then do you agree with my outline of how we're handling today?
I do. I think that that's all perfectly fine. And an agenda item, although it is somewhat typical or sometimes typical for a board to say and for possible vote in the agenda, it's not required. The agenda item specifically identifies deliberation upon this application, and deliberation includes a potential vote. So I think you can run your way all the way through this. There's a lot of different ways to go about this in terms of what you allow and don't allow for during the course of this meeting. As you noted, new facts or information, new reports, plans, letters, that's not going to be considered today. Can you have dialogue with Penrose if you want today? Yes, it just can't include new facts. They can't say, well, here's a new plan or something like that. So you have a lot of options as chair, and as chair, it's your call as to whether or not to call on Penrose at all or anyone else you can keep it just to the board if you so desire today.
Okay, thank you, Jay. That is very helpful information, and thanks for sharing it with everyone. Okay, so then, going back to what we're going to do, we're going to just, I'm going to call on each board member to share how they, to share broadly what they're thinking, what conditions they might have, and how they intend to vote. And we're going to go in our normal order, which is starting with Dave Veach.
Okay, well, for me, I mean, I think I've been, especially considering first and foremost that we are instructed and expected to be balancing the proposal in front of us against the need for more affordable housing in the town of Chatham. And in my estimation, that need is very overwhelming in many respects. And so I've been in favor of this project and the previous one, been inclined to be in favor of them all along for that very reason. I think that as far as, and looking through, as far as conditions and some of the conditions we applied on Main Street and some of the things we've talked about here, for me, at least, and this may not be true for others, but it seems to me one of the main things that we've discussed frequently in terms of the idea of a condition or not, and or some form of a condition, whatever, is the question of sidewalks and safe access to the site. And for myself, I've been and it has been pointed out to us, I think, by Penrose, that as far as the professional and expert, if you will, advice and of the traffic engineers and the engineers, all the engineers, our peer review engineers, everything, they've all, as far as I can tell, and reading, have opined that the proposal with the sidewalk connecting to the bike path is sufficient and safe, and for environmental and other reasons, in their judgment, a very good situation. So I'm inclined to go along and accept those opinions. I may be more inclined to do that than some others, but I do put some faith in professional opinion, always, of course, always with a certain amount of healthy skepticism, but that has carried the day for me. And I think that, and further, with respect to the sidewalk, I am convinced that, as Penrose has presented, I accept that they're presented, that if we're talking about sidewalks, aside from the section of sidewalk that Penrose has agreed to do for the town as part of the land disposal agreement, the other possibilities that have been talked about running a sidewalk on the east or west side of Meeting House Road, I'm swayed that's not something that I feel is something that we should be seeking to impose on Penrose alone. I think it is. They've argued that it's a town responsibility, and I'll go along with that. So I'm not in favor of doing that. I know that there'll probably be some different opinions on the board, but I'm not. I think that I have, and if we come down to, instead, you guys, further discussion about sidewalks, et cetera, and looking at the situation and the reasons why the west side of the road is very undesirable for trying to put a sidewalk there. And I know it was mentioned previously by at our previous meeting by one of the selectmen about talking with the Catholic Church across the way, about the town and the church perhaps collaborating with the help of Penrose, or input of Penrose at least. So I know we've been, I could see a possibility, if we're not satisfied with it collectively, with what's been proposed. I could see, as long as there's a clear understanding that we're not asking Penrose on its own to be putting a sidewalk in there, but I think that we could. I know we've been led to believe that seeking a crosswalk there is maybe a tough sell with DOT, with Department of Transportation. But if we wanted to condition similarly to, as we did on Main Street, about a crosswalk there, with the idea of a sidewalk being built on the west side, or the east side, excuse me, on the east side of Meeting House Road, and understanding that they can't promise that that the state would go along with it, but I could see, I would have a willingness to, I could support that in terms of the sidewalk considerations. As far as many of the other things I've looked through, and perhaps even mentioned last meeting, I don't think, I mean, I think some of the things that we've discussed in the meeting here, and the public has brought up many, many times, I see some of this and some of the conditions that we applied on Main Street that I don't think really are as much at issue here for me, such as the speaking about the irrigation system and well and things. I don't know what, I mean, I have some mixed thoughts about that. The assignment of parking, something that we ended up with there. I'm not inclined to, I'm not opposed to these kinds of things, but I don't know that they don't have a lot of importance for me as attaching as conditions. They have, I'm satisfied that they have offered and stipulated that they'll put a generator in for the management portion of the building so that there's some emergency power available on site. And, there's some other things that they were mentioned in the previous letter about their previous letter about a guardrail alongside the sidewalk going out to the bus stop, and so I mean we certainly could incorporate if they're suggesting those things as conditions. And other than that, I'm just gonna see what my fellow members have to say and go from there.
Dave, I have a follow-up question for you. I think I heard you say that regarding a crosswalk, that you mentioned like talking to the state about that. I thought I remembered Mr. Singer saying in a previous hearing a while ago that it was not a state road. Do you remember that?
Oh, I didn't, actually, I was, that could be. It could be that it's not up to
Okay.
the state DOT. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think that was,
I just assume because it's a state highway that,
yeah. No, well, I think that you weren't alone. I think that's why that question came up. I don't really even remember if it was in our meeting or
Yeah.
in a hearing that I watched from, I don't know, planning board
No.
or others. But I do remember that, and I just wanted to see
Okay.
if that was,
yeah, I did reread.
Correct. I could be wrong.
Yeah, and I did reread the letter that they submitted to us from their traffic consultants. And the traffic consultants have indicated that a mid-block
Right.
crosswalk is not particularly favorable or looked well upon in the situation.
yeah, I
So,
remember that too.
okay.
Okay. Did you remember any, or Sarah, do we need to clarify that? Or
I do believe that Attorney Singer had stated that it was a county road and not a state highway.
County road, okay. Yep, all right, thank you. All right, Dave. And we can go back,
Yeah,
about-
I may have other, but sure.
Okay. So I know the two of you are sitting together, but we do have Ed Acton on the line, who is normally sitting there. So I did want to pivot over to Ed, have you go.
Sure. Can you hear me all right?
We can, yep, and see you.
Okay, great. All right. I've been a supporter of this project, from the beginning, and the supporter of the Main Street project. I think Penrose has done a good job with both these projects, and I think the town and the board has helped mold both of these projects in a direction that is going to be beneficial for the town. In regards to the what seems to be the main issue here, or one of the main issues, the sidewalk, I'm in favor, and I believe the bike path option for access down to Meeting House Road is a good option. I think it's a safe option. It's in my opinion, it's safer than having a sidewalk right along Meeting House Road. But I would want to condition that Penrose maintain not only that sidewalk area on their property, but also on the bike path area. In regards to other conditions, I think I went over a list of other conditions during our last meeting, and really don't have any other ones to add. I would like to see the project move forward, and I'm hoping perhaps that it does today.
Okay. Ed, I have a follow-up question for you. When you say
Sure.
maintain the bike path,
The section of the bike path
Yeah.
that they're suggesting
Intersecting
be
with-
used for access down to Meeting House Road.
okay,
I don't feel it's a big ask to ask them to, on occasion, remove snow or ice, or I would ask that they sort of maintain it like they would the path on their own property, on the Penrose property.
okay, that's where I was going. You would want to make
Yep.
that a condition, and I just wanted to put a little more specificity to maintain. So specifically, snow removal was brought up a few times.
Yep.
I know that the path within the complex was proposed to be lit, but the path
Yeah.
on the rail trail is not lit. So would it include lighting? Is that
No,
what you-
I
okay.
don't feel lighting is necessary.
Okay.
I think just snow removal and, ice removal, typical, or, just as they would on the rest of the
on their
path on their property.
All right. Just trying to help Sarah and Jay Talman with some of the
Sure.
notes for the conditions, yeah, okay. Anything else to add?
I don't know. I think the conditions I mentioned last week probably were noted already. So I think that would be the only, one that perhaps wasn't affirmed as of the last meeting.
Okay, so similar to what Dave Each was saying about some of these other things that have been brought up, sort of secondary to you, or not things that you want to outline? Irrigation?
Yeah, I mean,
What?
I could go through some of the other conditions that I had mentioned last meeting, if you'd like, or,
Sarah has them here.
okay.
So Ed, I noted agreement, agreement with town for snow removal on bike path, permanent irrigation, gas grills and seating, vents on back of building, I'm not certain what that was about, and solar panels.
Yeah, so events meaning like heat pumps should be, when possible, placed on the back of the buildings so they're not visible, and or if they're not capable of doing all of them on the back of the buildings, that the ones that are visible should be screened.
Okay.
And I believe we also had I believe this project was to include solar panels as well, similar to the Main Street project.
Okay. All right. So you're in agreement with Sarah's list and nothing else to add, at least right now? Okay, if you think of something else, we can go back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, Paul.
Well, I agree with the first two speakers here that there's definitely a need for this kind of housing, and we've all recognized that and are trying to arrive at a conclusion that will provide that. I think that Penrose has been cooperative in trying to get to some of these things. They've given us some concessions which have changed the project from what was initially proposed. They've added some additional land, which makes an impact on density. In terms of the access issue, which I think is probably the primary concern that we've had, I agree with Ed that probably the best access that's available is the bike path. And I've said from the beginning that although Penrose considers that to be an amenity, in this circumstance, I think it's more than an amenity because we're providing access to Route 28 and all of the ability to then access downtown, the bus routes and so forth, by giving access to 28 on the bike path. The idea of putting a sidewalk in on the west side of Meeting House Road does not seem to me to be practical given the terrain and the topical issues that are involved there. And on the east side, it may be that it will eventually be possible with town cooperation and with cooperation from the church. But I think it does require a mid-block access across the Meeting House Road, which the experts seem to feel is not likely. So given the fact that we have land available, which could be accessed by pedestrians by using the bike path if it's appropriately maintained, seems to me to be the solution which would allow us to use this land, and I think it's important to try and use the land. So I would agree that the access should be through the bike path, that the bike path should be maintained in the wintertime from the entrance of this property to down to Meeting House Road, that it should be lit. I'm concerned about safety, and I'm concerned about the fact that in the wintertime, it's dark there. You're going into what is really a wooded area, and I have some concern about safety and doing that appropriately. You don't necessarily have that problem with sidewalks that are going along the side of the road elsewhere in town. And I can see why you wouldn't necessarily have always a need to plow those or to illuminate those. But here, we're dealing with a number of people who, by income level, are probably going to be using public access to get down to a number of errands and things that they need to do. So it's important, I think, from our viewpoint, that we provide for that kind of access. So I'm saying shoveling in the water in the wintertime, whether it's ice or snow, and eliminating it so that people can see. The applicant is going to make, I guess, an effort to get a bus stop at the entrance to the property. Right now, I don't think that portion of Meeting House Road is serviced by a bus. Rather, it goes on 28, and therefore, I would ask that they make their best efforts along the lines of the language we used in the crosswalk on Main Street to get that done. We had some question about the right-of-way and whether there's any changes to the right-of-way to 95 Meeting House Road. And I think we've ended up with a solution that if there were to be any changes to that right-of-way, it would have to come back to us, and would need our approval, I think that would be significant. We've talked about generators, and they've offered to have a generator at the administration building. It would be nice if there were generators for all of the buildings, but frankly, I don't think that's something that we require of other subdivisions in town. And a number of us have existed without generators for a number of years. It isn't pleasant necessarily, but it's certainly doable. And the town does have available emergency services that would be available, if necessary, for people to charge things or to deal with health problems. So I think generators are not necessarily a requirement from my viewpoint. Overall, I think that we have an opportunity to use some land that has been, in effect, given to us at a low discounted price, and we should grab that opportunity and use it if at all possible. And I think it is possible for us to condition this 40B and make it viable. I'm willing to work with the other members in coming to conclusions as to conditions, but we should definitely go forward.
Okay, Paul, thank you. That was very thorough. Dave Nixon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. To start with, I have a message for you from Abe Lincoln, same as I did in the past. When there are questions of great importance, certainly his were far more than ours, there's got to be balance between reason and passion. I simply say that so that we remember that. Before I get into the specifics about Penrose, I'd like to address some myths that come up during our meetings and just should be addressed. First myth is that the ZBA's dragged their feet about this whole thing, taking it out, a year, why didn't you do something? Well, the fact of the matter was that Penrose continuously asked for continuances. So we lost all of January, February, March, and April because they had more important things to do. It wasn't us dragging our feet, it was them. Second myth, that the project will house police, fire department individuals, teachers, town employees. This is all a myth. They all make way too much money, number one, to qualify. And secondly, there are far more attractive places for them and their families to live in. Who are likely to be here? Well, certainly single moms. Maybe they have a part-time job and that's all their income. They would definitely be someone to be considered. Retirees who had no income outside of Social Security. Folks maybe from Chatham's fishery who work strictly part-time. It seems to me you're limited to the number of days you can fish and all that. Same true of folks that work in the landscape business. There's only so many days you can work. Another myth that this project's going to help our elementary school population. Well, hate to bring it up, but our elementary school is headed for the history books. Here's why, and these are real numbers. They're not maybe numbers or something based on what you think. Class numbers for this year. K, 19 this year, meaning the year that just finished in June. 19, first grade, going to next year. 18, second grade. 19, projected number for pre-K, 17. Well, what this all means is that in 2 years, this being the average, we'll have 6 classrooms being used. And remember, that school was built for 300 students. That was 20-odd years ago that we had that kind of number. Last year, I think we had 150. Like I say, in 2 years, we'll be down to 110, 115. It's not a big jump from there to 100. The budget that we approve, for FY 27, $5,700,000 and some odd thousand dollars. Do the math. Do the math and tell me what's going to happen with that school. It's going to be closed. Our children will be sent to other towns. Remember, school choice is $5,000 a year. If you get you live here and you want your child to go to Nauset High and you get accepted, it's $5,000 that the town pays. We're talking about $2.5 million, maybe for 100 students. That's an awful lot of money. We have to help out neighboring communities who need students and they need money. It's not hard to figure out why folks can't find a place to live here. Median sales for Cape Cod as of May 2026, Chatham, $1,375,000. Yarmouth, $599,000. Dennis, $615,000. Harwich, $760,000. Orleans, $779,000. They're not even close to what it costs to buy a home in this town. And who buys them? Well, retirees want to live here. This is a great place to live. Retirees buy them. Folks who want to have a summer home, I do believe, and somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, that over half of the homes in town now, single-family homes, are not owned by residents. We have speculators happy to buy your home. You know, if something comes up for sale for less than $1 million nowadays, bing, they're on it. Let's buy it. We'll fix it up, sell it for $2.5 million. We had somebody in that category just last week. It's a wonderful place to live, and folks are more than willing to pay the price. Next myth. The town is in favor of this project. That's totally false. The current Board of Selectmen, if you took a vote right now today, it would be 3-2 against, maybe 4-1 against, but certainly 3-2 and 1 against. Without a doubt. How do I know? I've asked them. Also, at May's town meeting, what happened? A stipend for this project was soundly defeated. That tells you something. The town is not in favor of this. The select board is not in favor of this. So let's talk about Penrose. Penrose, it was a terrible choice. Absolutely terrible. There's no room for negotiation with these folks about substantial items, none, zero. They're all about one thing. They're all about their profit points, the profit they're going to make. They also appear to be lousy landlords. Did you hear what David Farrell came and told us about what was cooking in Orleans? Judy Patterson presented us with some information on Orleans. I don't know for sure, I haven't been, but I don't get a no good vibe from them at all. Specifics. The density question was brought up. Oh, well, they bought more land. Yeah, they bought more land. And what did they do? They are driving out of town a young couple with 2 young children. Exactly the kind of people we want to encourage to be here. That's how they increase their density. Is that good? That is terrible. We asked about overflow parking lots. Psst, all I hear is crickets about that. What happens to folks that have a pickup truck, or maybe they work in the landscape business? Where are they going to put that trailer? They're going to drive it up on top? No, thank you. I've mentioned a number of times studio apartments. This, to me, is the greatest need right now in this town for folks who work here. The folks who go to their first job, maybe it's at CBI or a restaurant or whatever it might be. A studio apartment. I lived in one with my wife in Hawaii when I worked in the hospitality industry. It was great. It was small. It was great, though. I've talked about elevators a number of times. No. No, no. That's what I keep hearing. No. Why not? Well, the Commonwealth doesn't make them buy them. They don't have to put them in. It's okay to discriminate according to, well, they don't say it, but what they're saying is it's okay to discriminate against disabled folks, handicapped folks, seniors who have a tough time getting around. You know, to me, to be honest with you, they're treating these folks as second-class citizens. Unheard of in this day and age. Disgusting. Not acceptable in any way, shape, or form. They might throw us 5 units, because that's all they have to do, out of 42 that are ADA acceptable. Elevators, no. Have someone who's disabled, handicapped, whatnot, you know, they could probably climb up the stairs, but climbing downstairs, that's the tough thing. Think about all the accidents you hear about. Maybe your friends who've fallen down their cellar stairs. It's going down, it's not coming up. The biggest concern is safety. And you have to think about the children. The children are the ones riding the bikes. The children are the ones that we need to be concerned about. And I want you to think about the DNA of someone who's 7 years old or 10 years old or 12 or 14, 15. I can tell you about the DNA of children that age. 2 things. Number one, you can't go fast enough. Speed, I don't care what they're doing. Speed. Oh, you know, soapbox derby, slot car, model train. The speed. How fast can you go? How can you? Let's go to amusement park, and boy, let's get on that roller coaster. It's crazy. It goes so fast. And even when they play an electronic game, what do they have? They have a device in their hand, and the faster you click it, the faster you can operate it, is whether you're going to win that game or not. It's speed. It's speed. The second thing in their DNA is the lack of concern about danger, the lack of sensing that. I'll give you an example. 4 children, project's built. They say, gee, one of them says, my grandfather gave me $20. Let's bike over to Schoolhouse and get some ice cream. What do you think? And you two, this gentleman has 10-year-old, has 2 friends from school or wherever with him, and he has a little 7-year-old brother with him too. We'll call him Zach, okay? Zach is there too. So they all say, let's do it. Now, where are they going to go? On this path that Penrose wants to build? Absolutely not. Why? Because they can't go fast on that. It's of no interest to them. This beautiful driveway that is being built by Penrose that sweeps up to where the units are located, that's a downhill all the way to 137, and that's where they're going to go down. And they're going to go down as fast as they can. Well, and how about little Zach, who's at 7 years old? He can't keep up with them, and he's screeching at him, guys, wait for me, please. Please wait for me. He gets down to 137. He's looking up the street where they are, because they're weaving in to get on the other side. He doesn't even bother to look to his left. What happens to Zach? I'll tell you what happens to Zach. News article, August 12th, Boston Globe. Young cyclist 7 killed while riding bike. 7-year-old Max Rothschild was killed last week while riding his bike. He just learned how to ride a bike, was so proud of himself. And he was trying to get better because the family was going to go on a trip. He was practicing to get better, said his family. Now, Zach's brother is at the ice cream stand when he hears the sirens go off, and they realize Zach's not around, so he rides back. And there are the EMTs picking Zach up off 137. And you might say, you're just being so dramatic, so overly dramatic. No, I'm telling you what happens. And I'm telling you what is going to happen on 137. It's not an if, ladies and gentlemen. It's a when. The only thing that would possibly Penrose could do for it is build some sort of a way on their side of the street. They're not going to do it. You know what? It's price point. And they've already told you. They're not going to do it. Even if we had a sidewalk across the street, which I doubt too, but that's not going to help these 4 kids on their bikes, is it? No, because they went as fast as they could. They got on 137. They weaved across because they wanted to get that ice cream place as soon as possible. You know, in June, there were 3 instances of children being injured on the highways of Chatham. 3. Speaking of dangers around here, I don't think motorists are as polite as they used to be. Maybe I'm wrong, but 725 out of the Chronicle, fatal accident. Lady, Janet Brennan, in the neighborhood of, I guess it was Woodpecker Lane. She was run down by a gentleman driving a van, and he allegedly said to the police, well, I thought she was going to stop. The operator of the motor vehicle says, I thought she was going to stop. What happened to the idea that the pedestrian has a right of way? I guess not around here. What I described about that young man, that's the future that awaits our children. The speedway that I talked about that's going to be built, it's all bad. So I hope everybody here asks themselves, what's the price of safety? I think Steve brought this up before, if I'm not mistaken. Steve brought this up. What is the price of safety for our children? Yeah, you have to answer that in your question yourself. I know what it is, but the price is going to be paid if Penrose doesn't pay it. The price is going to be paid by who? The children, the very children. They're the ones that are going to be injured or worse. Going back to Abe Lincoln, Passion says, hey, vote yes. But I don't hear concerns from all the folks that have spoken to us over the months. Did I hear any concerns out of them? No. Penrose is great. They're wonderful. Let's see. Penrose, you mean that corporate entity that has no soul, no heart, but you know what they do have? They've got a balance sheet. That's what Penrose has, is a balance sheet. I'll be voting no, because I'm concerned about the safety of our children, the honorable treatment of disabled, handicapped, and senior citizens, and housing for the folks who work here. I will enthusiastically cast a resounding no vote. And to my colleagues who feel that they have to vote yes, I do hope you'll take a second look. Take a second look. Don't be the one responsible with a yes vote for a tragedy on 137. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon, for your thorough, thoughtful comments. Steve?
It's kind of hard to follow that one. Well, I guess I'd like to say that I endorse most of what was said by the other members to this point. My biggest concern is that this property is so isolated, and the people who are most likely going to be there are the most mobility challenged. They may not even have vehicles of their own. I think the way things were laid out, I think it lacks a lot of just the basic amenities people need in a large housing development such as this. There's really no private spaces for them to be. There's no patios. There is some green space, but I think it's very limited. And I thought that maybe with the purchase of the adjoining property that something else could have been done to address that. There's nothing for older teenagers to do or even the adults. You know, a basketball court or a pickleball court or something. I don't think a 17-year-old kid is going to want to go and play on a set of monkey bars. And there's nothing for the adults to do. The isolation also brings up another point. The resident ability to get around. There's nothing around this except a liquor store and an ice cream shop. You know, other than that, everything else is miles away. And for people who don't have vehicles of their own, it's going to be very difficult for them. So I think something needs to be done to enhance the transportation capabilities of this property for the people who are living there. The perpetual care of the buildings and the grounds, I think, are important. You know, we got reports of repairs taking months to be done up in Eastham, and that's totally unacceptable. You know, I don't know if we can put some sort of come to some sort of an agreement where repairs are made within a certain amount of time, maybe 30 days or something. I don't know how we can enforce something like that, but you know, these buildings have to be maintained, and the grounds have to be maintained. And you know, if we have to wait months to get something done, that's just totally unacceptable. I sort of disagree about the generators for each building. I think that's very important. And I know that, you know, we've been said that we're asking of something that's not normally asked for in other subdivisions, but there are no other large multifamily subdivisions currently underway in the town of Chatham, so there's nothing to compare this to. We can't say that we don't ask a developer who's developing single-family houses to add generators. There's single-family houses that's up to the owner to do that if they want to put a generator in. These people don't have a choice. And it brings back the isolation issue. Some of them may not be able to get someplace in an emergency. And assuming that all of their appliances in their units are going to be electric, that means they don't even have the privilege of cooking a hot meal if there's an electrical outage, because I'm assuming it's going to be an electric stove and oven. So they'll be in the dark with no heat and unable to cook themselves dinner, which is, again, totally unacceptable. As far as the bike path, I was kind of against using that, but if we can come to an agreement where they're going to at least you know, make it safe to traverse in the wintertime by plowing the snow or removing the ice. I think lighting it is important, at least the section that between their on-site path and as you get closer to Meeting House Road. I think that's critical to be lit. I don't know if, you know, young girls are going to want to walk up there and through the dark at 9 o'clock at night. So I think something needs to be done for their safety and for everybody who's going to use that path. Sidewalks, you know, I was a big proponent of that. I still would like to see something done. You know, they're offering to build a sidewalk on the east side between the bike path and Route 28. Well, that's great. But if you can't get to it safely, then what good is it? So I think something needs to be done to offer these people a secondary access and not have to rely on a path that goes through their property and onto the bike path. they need a second primary way to exit the property and access the property. I think that's it.
Steve, follow-up question. Secondary access from the property's access to the bike path. Sidewalk, is that what you're?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's good that they have this path of their own that accesses the bike path, but I don't see that as being the primary way to enter and leave this property. If they need something in that driveway area, I think, or some other way that they don't have to utilize that path.
That's the only way. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. So I have to admit, like Steve and a few others, I never really liked this particular site for the Penrose project, and here's why. It's too remote. The topography of the lot is very challenging. It's on a busy road, very few stores within walking distance. It's not on the public bus route. But most importantly, there are no sidewalks and limited streetlights, creating a pedestrian safety issue. I drove down there the other day and I counted the streetlights. And there's like 1 or 2 way up high that just doesn't cut it as far as I'm concerned. I wasn't a voting member when we had the Main Street Buckley property, but I would have voted to approve that one. We as a board made substantial changes to improve the plan that Penrose initially presented. The Main Street property is on a public bus route. It has sidewalks, well-lighted ones, actually from one of the rotaries to the other rotary. Beautiful, big streetlights. There are restaurants and stores nearby that people can walk to, and potential for overflow parking should that need arise. It is a safe location for an affordable housing project. So when Penrose first presented their plan for Meeting House Road to us, I was surprised and a little disappointed that it was the same model as Main Street. Penrose has a model, and there's nothing wrong with it. It works well on a site like Main Street, but I don't think it's the right model for the Meeting House site. The first rendition that Penrose presented was not ideal for Meeting House. One of the residents was shown abutting a steep drop-off. There was limited green space, only one dumpster, and a small playground off to the side of the site plan. We discussed the density of the project and the potential for eliminating a building, but we're told that that would not be economical. So I was very interested when we were told of a substantial redo of the entire plan, hoping that it would be something entirely different. While it was better, it was the same model, the same buildings, a different layout. There were definitely some improvements, which I believe made the project better by improving the density. And I do appreciate Penrose's efforts to purchase the abutting lot and reconfigure the site. So then I focused on my main concern regarding the access to and from the site and offered a potential solution for the path from the development to the bike trail. Penrose claimed that it involved too much grading and therefore was not going to pursue it. While a path to the bike trail is a nice amenity, it should not be the only way one can walk on and off the property. The bike trail is busy in the summer. It's unlit. It's closed from dusk to dawn, and never plowed in the winter. A sidewalk on the property is needed, but we were told that for various reasons that was uneconomical. I suggested a sidewalk across Meeting House Road. could be an option, but did not see any evidence that was being discussed or considered. In order for me to approve this permit, there needs to be a sidewalk. Providing pedestrian infrastructure is a fundamental public safety requirement. So as a condition of my approval of this comprehensive permit, I want Penrose to construct an ADA-compliant paved and lit sidewalk along the entire property frontage of the development abutting Meeting House Road. This is my preferred site for the sidewalk. My second option, in lieu of a frontage sidewalk, Penrose shall construct a crosswalk and a lit sidewalk across Meeting House Road on the easterly abutters property. This would include the installation of a crosswalk across Meeting House Road and an ADA-compliant paved sidewalk, lit, extending from the new crosswalk to Route 28. Penrose would be responsible for negotiating any easement from the easterly abutter, as well as any permits from the town DPW. And I'm sure Jay Tellerman, Town Council, can add some appropriate details for these conditions. And I guess my question for Jay right now is this an appropriate condition at this time? And is there a way to word it so that Penrose will have to comply? And can we tie it to the issuance of building permits or occupancy permits? And what would happen if Penrose says that the construction of a sidewalk on either site would render the project uneconomical? Would it come back to us or go to the HAC? And Jay, I don't know if you would mind just talking about that for a few seconds, minutes, whatever.
Sure. So, yeah, and I'm happy to talk about it. What I'm not going to do is get into a particularly detailed analysis of success rates and what it may look like at the Housing Appeals Committee and what may happen there. I will give you what ifs, but I'm not going to discuss in public chances of success, because that's something that I would generally reserve for a private discussion with the board. That would be privileged. I think that imposing the condition itself is within the framework of 40B. So I think that if we had a multi-tiered kind of condition, as you've suggested, Lee, and even combining that with what I'm hearing from some of the other board members, and I've been taking notes, I think we can certainly do that and include the language that you've discussed, a little wordsmithing, but nothing out of the usual. And then but certainly pedestrian access is a feature of many comprehensive permits, and it's some things we can do. I get a little concerned about mandating work in property that they don't have access or control to. So, but we can work around that in language that where when we're talking about alternatives. So certainly they have control of their site. And alternatively, if they got control of other sites, i.e. across the street to do this, then they could do that at their option. So I think that that's all feasible to the extent that they appealed that condition and perhaps other conditions of the permit. But let's say that that was a particular focus of an appeal at the Housing Appeals Committee. It is certainly conceivable that the Housing Appeals Committee could reject that condition as being something that made the project uneconomic or something that exceeded the board's authority. I think we could draft it in a way that it would be within the board's authority, and we could play around with that language. But in terms of making it economically infeasible, the way it works at the Housing Appeals Committee is that it would be Penrose's burden from an evidentiary perspective after an evidentiary hearing to demonstrate that it would make the project uneconomic. And we would have an opportunity to rebut that evidence or to challenge that evidence. And that would be a proceeding that would unfold over the course of the next 6 to 12 months, thereabouts, with other further rights of appeal after that. So, and if the Housing Appeals Committee agreed with Penrose on that it made it uneconomic, then we'd have an opportunity to demonstrate to the Housing Appeals Committee that we need it for public health and safety. So it's a two-step analysis. And if we succeeded on that latter stage, then the condition would stay even if it rendered the project uneconomic. So obviously, if they fail to demonstrate that it makes it uneconomic, then we prevail in the first instance and don't even have to take step 2, more or less. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the basic gist. So that's the process as I would see it going forward. And again, I'm not going to discuss here in a public session risks and benefits and the kind of stuff that lawyers discuss with their clients in private. But those are the basics.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll just wrap up by saying that Meeting House is a very busy road. The safety of the 100-plus residents is something to be taken very seriously. Building a 40B development on a busy road without sidewalk creates a severe safety risk for the residents who will be living there, as well as for the surrounding community. While I still believe that this is not a safe location for a 40B project, such as the one Penrose is proposing, it is what the board has to work with. I think we have done a respectable job listening to boards and committees in town, our peer reviews, and the town residents. We have gone through this very lengthy process, but I and others have consistently expressed concern for the safety of the residents. I feel that a sidewalk is a requirement for the approval of this project.
Okay, Lee, thank you. All right, I'm going to summarize my comments. I want to thank the board for all of your feedback. I'm going to incorporate some of that here in my notes, and then I had prepared some comments in advance of hearing what you were going to say. I want to start off with density. Lee mentioned this. It was too dense in the beginning. There was a building that was hanging off of the edge. The topography is challenged. We all understood that, but there were 42 units that wanted to be had, and that's how it was configured. I applaud Penrose for listening. We had a very impassioned comment from our previous chairman back then, as Dave Nixon mentioned. This is spanning a year, and we had 4 months of a hearing, and then or a few months of a hearing, and then 4 months of a break. And before that break, and the reason for that break was for Penrose to go back and assess the feedback at that point, which was very clearly what you've heard today, and more so, this was the previous project. And it had no open space, it was just too dense. And they came back, and I do applaud Penrose for the creative solution. It was an improvement to the project, and I applaud you for listening to that and coming back with something. But we never changed the density of the 42 units. We just addressed additional open space. I personally don't think it's enough open space, but it was an improvement. So I would say two things something related to density was the parking. I'm going to get to that in a minute, but before I get to that related issue, I want to talk about 95 Meeting House. That's important to me. That's on my list of things that I think is unresolved after a year. I know there's been discussion about the right-of-way, and there's been discussion about just parking that for later. And I too want to harken back to Main Street for a second. We heard, and I know it's a different property, there was so much time spent and so much heard from the abutters. And it was 3 sides of abutters, but we leaned in so much, and so did Penrose, to listen to the abutters. Why? Because it's important that these affordable housing projects, or any project, goes into an area where it is sensitive to that area, and the abutters are number one on that list. And I think we made substantial accommodations, we meaning the board, Penrose, in that regard for Main Street. Here on this property, we have 2 abutters, 2. And I first thought, like, well, that's good when we first started this project, because we had so much time on the abutters in the previous project. And one of them is part of the solution. But it's because it's not, it maybe is benefiting that abutter. I'm talking about 87, and probably is. But it primarily was driven by the fact that it benefited Penrose, because it was very clear that they needed to adjust their proposal. This was before the break. The comments from the board and the meetings before the break made that very clear. So we now have one abutter that has been, in my view, virtually ignored through this 12 months of process. And I don't think that that's acceptable. So I do not like the fact that that is still unresolved. I know there's been talk about it, the right-of-way being, but this is the time to address all those things. So that's on my list. Let me go back to parking. So I agree with the comments that I know Lee made, some others made, about being stuck in that property. In fact, that was a quote from someone on the planning board. I feel like, this was at their July hearing, I feel like residents there are stuck on that property. I think many of us over the months have echoed that concern. And yet it hasn't been adequately addressed. It's been talked about, it's been talked around, but it hasn't been addressed with respect, in my opinion, to sufficient parking. Steve brought up, what if, or maybe it was Dave brought up, what if you're the landscaper that's suitable for this project, part-time and has equipment, where does it go? So I think there needs to be more parking on this property. I think the current ratio is 1:6 for 42 units, and I mean, I think it would need to be something like 2. I don't know, but I don't think it's sufficient. And I listened to Penrose's response to us and also to the planning board, and they make a comparison to their other properties. And the gentleman from the planning board said, I hear that, and I respect the fact that you have analysis and your ratios, but for this property isn't like those other properties. And he's right, it isn't. And so I don't think that that's the formula that works for this property. So parking is on my list. And then the last thing on my list is safety. And safety to me equals a sidewalk. And I want to just pull out a few quotes from the planning board and others that we have heard over 12 months. Oh, and by the way, at that planning board meeting, I rewatched it. 6 of their 7 members at that hearing brought up the sidewalk, brought up safety. This is not our board only that is weighing in on this. We, as a board, we often go, everyone knows, sort of last in the progression of hearing from different conservation, planning, et cetera, because we want to take in the composite view. It isn't just the opinion of 7 people. It is the opinion of our professionals in this town that give up their time to serve on these boards, and we should and do listen to them. So I went back and listened to that hearing, and 6 out of 7 of them brought up the sidewalk. And some of the comments were your response to my comments, concerns is not adequate to address my safety concerns. That's the planning board. This is a safety issue, the sidewalk, planning board. And I personally have talked about the sidewalk a lot. And at our last meeting, in fact, I asked, we've talked about this so many times, has there been any discussion by Penrose to the town, to the doctor's office, and to the church And the answer was no. And it was either said this way or it came across to me this way as almost like, why would we? We have said early on that this sidewalk will render our project uneconomic, and we can't build it. And we have talked about sidewalk on the east side, sidewalk on the west side, sidewalk parallel to the bike path. That was going to be a third of the length of the sidewalk. Trying to listen to and get comfortable with and try to accommodate our applicant. But I think, as you can hear today, and I fall squarely in this camp, it hasn't been sufficient. It's been 12 months, 4 months of which were spent addressing the density. But that, and I appreciate that. And I think that that's resulted in something that's better. But we have spent 12 months talking about the sidewalk, and I do think it's a safety issue. I think it's it's an unacceptable proposal the way it is, and I think you've heard that from many of us, that it is, to me, the sidewalk equals safety, and I don't think there's anything more important than safety. So those would be my comments about those areas. I can talk about conditions, but right now, the way I haven't spent a whole lot of time on conditions either, because the primary things that I've addressed, Penrose has not been willing to, so I think Lee Hovey covered her concern. Jay answered that around how that would take to address the concern around the sidewalk and the safety. I think I heard him say it could be another 12 months. So one of the things that I remember, and if I'm remembering this incorrectly, board members, please remind me. It's my remembrance that the town bought this property from the church at a below market, not a below market, not at a market value rate, but at a discount. But it was purchased on the condition that it be used for affordable housing. I don't know if that included workforce housing. I agree with Dave Nixon. That's really what we need in this town as well. And so I don't know about that, but this isn't the only project. Someone else brought up the fact that the composition of the new select board may not be in agreement with the previous. Because these projects have gone on for so long, we've had some changeover on our select board. I think that's something that I'm thinking about. So if it's correct that the church has made that a condition, and that was a condition on the town purchasing it, I almost, in hearing some of the comments, feel as though the decision is based on affordable housing or no affordable housing. No, we're just talking about this project, which is the affordable housing project that's here for us today. It doesn't mean that we can't start another discussion around another project to help the town's needs for housing. And that certainly shouldn't wait for 12 months to get through whether we are or are not going to like the new sidewalk. So I'm not even inclined to condition. I'm inclined to vote no on this project as it stands today, because I feel as though we have been very clear in what we needed, and we have not received what we need or what I need to vote for this project. So with that, maybe we take a quick break. Or Jay, do you want to comment on where we go from here, given, do you have enough to write what you need? Do you think we should vote? Do you think we should?
Well, I have enough in terms of notes, but I do think that if the board is going to vote, and I think it's going to be a close vote, on an approval that would conditioned on something with respect to a sidewalk, let's just assume that there's 3 votes for that. I'm going to need some direction. Lee did provide some decent detail, and if everyone wanted to go with that, I think I could draft the primary request that she had, and then with the alternative. If it's something a little different than that, I need to hear from the board to see what there's 3 votes to support. Obviously, if this is a denial, then that's a different story. This becomes a very different decision, and we'll have to draft it as such and probably get back together and look at it. But unless we clearly outline what it looks like. So there's another half dozen or so conditions that I would want to go through once we get to kind of voting an amalgamation of conditions. There's most of the conditions are kind of boilerplate, but I have identified on my other screen like 6 or 7 other ones that I've been hearing today from the various board members, and I think we want to be taking a vote on each of those before Sarah and I complete a draft for Ginny's execution. So, or otherwise, we may have to get back together again and consider what that decision looks like. So I'm comfortable where we are from a drafting perspective. And I'm just going to need a slight bit more direction, and then maybe after the break, we could kind of circle back together and talk, maybe go through each of those items that have been discussed today. And I have a list. I'm assuming Sarah has a list and others as well, and just kind of tick them off and see if they could find their way to it. I think maybe before that, we discuss if this is an approval or a denial. I've heard 2 members suggest that it could be a denial, but obviously don't know until we get there. So maybe after the break, we could tackle all that.
Okay, I think that sounds good. So we're going to take a 15-minute break, and then we will. 5 minutes. Oh, 5. Oh, we can only take 5? No, we can. Oh, but we only need 5? Okay. We're going to take a 5-minute break. I've been advised by both sides of me here. All right, 5-minute break, and then we'll go from there. Thank you. Okay, welcome back, everyone. We have, see how fast 5 minutes goes? I think I should have stuck with 15.
We talked about it.
Okay, so Jay Tollivan, we have you on the line? Okay, great. All right, well, it seems to me that maybe the first place to start, Jay, tell me if you disagree, is we have Ms. Hovey, who has said, I need to understand, well, she's imposed conditions on the sidewalk. My notes from, and hearing from Dave Veach and Paul, is that they did not feel the need to condition the sidewalk. So I think we start there, Jay, unless you have other ideas, because I think we want discussion around that condition that's been proposed by Lee, our board member.
I think that's right. I think that's the biggest showstopper here, for sure. We have, in addition to the sidewalk, some discussion in and around the bike path with lighting, gas grills, HVAC infrastructure, which we already have, the Hicks property, management, repairs, things like that, gas grill limitations, a few other assorted things to go through. But sidewalks is definitely 1A and 1B
Okay.
in terms of where we are right now.
Okay, so, thank you, Jay. So you would like to kind of discuss all those conditions, but let's start with the sidewalks, and I think, oh, I'm sorry, Dave. Dave Nixon wants to make a comment.
To me, the beginning of the discussion should be, who's willing to accept the perils of a yes vote or a no vote? Because all the conditions you're talking about are kind of down the street. You know, if we decide, and we should discuss the perils of a yes or a no vote, we really should, you know, what we think might happen. And then, from that, we would get a sense maybe of where we want to go. And then you can talk about the specific conditions. But I think we need to get over that hump first. You know, we want to vote now, and if you vote no, well, what do you get? If you vote yes, what do you get? And what are the perils of both, you know? That's what I would suggest. I could be wrong. If anybody would rather start with conditions, fine. But
Well, let me clarify. I think just, to me, the biggest elephant in the room is we have two folks who have said they didn't need to have this condition on the sidewalk. So if they're unwilling to condition the sidewalk, then right there, that's an answer to one of your questions. We could start there.
okay, fine.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
All right, so I'm going to put Dave Veach and Paul on the spot. You heard everything. How comfortable are you with the conditions that Lee Hovey laid out?
Well, so here's how I understand the situation that we're in, and which is that Paul and I have expressed that we don't think a sidewalk condition is needed. Lee and you have expressed that you want to see a condition of sidewalks. As I heard, and I think I want to just clarify, but as I heard what Lee said, she talked about some perhaps different options, perhaps with respect to the sidewalk. But the way I see this situation, you know, for me at least, is that I don't personally think it's a good idea to insert a condition that is likely to generate an appeal. But I will, even if we put that in there, I wouldn't advise doing that, but I will still support the project, because then if I mean, as far as I'm concerned, if they choose to appeal it rather than follow, you know, submit to that condition, they have every right to do that. And, you know, my sense is that we may well be overridden by the appeals committee, but we wouldn't know until we got there. So I'm not going to withdraw my support out of concern for putting a condition on that I don't think is a good idea.
Okay, that's very helpful, clear. Thank you, Dave. Paul, how about you?
Well, I don't think our decision should be governed by whether it's going to be appealed or not appealed, or whether we might be upheld on appeal or not upheld on appeal. I think we should do it on the basis of what we think is correct for this project in our town, based on the standards that are there. I've said that I do not think that I would require a sidewalk if there was access on the bike path and it was maintained in the wintertime and summertime to the extent that there's snow. But snow and ice are removed as they would be on the path in the project itself, and it's illuminated. So if those two conditions were a part of the overall approval, then that would be sufficient for me. I understand the economics of trying to put the condition, the sidewalk on the western side, and I understand the logistics of trying to put it on the eastern side in terms of the multiple owners, and I understand it from the idea that you're going to have a crosswalk on 137, which is probably not going to happen. So it seems to me that if we're going to have a project that actually will work and will provide some safe access, that we can do that by using the bike path. So my view would be that if there are those who think that it cannot be done without a sidewalk and that there are no ways to condition the sidewalk, condition the vote on the sidewalk, then it sounds to me like there may not be a sufficient number of votes to approve the project. And if that's the case, then that's the case. But I think it's a 3-2 vote. It is all it requires with respect to this project. It's not a 4-1, as it would be with most of our situations. So
Correct.
that's what you need to keep in mind.
Okay, I want to get to the perils in a minute, but I did, Lee, you had some feedback from Jay Tolman. Did you, to your specific questions about your condition or conditions, do you feel like you're satisfied with understanding what that means, what that process is? What questions do you have that would allow you to vote today or next hearing? Like, what questions remain?
Well, I think that we could make the condition very specific. Once again, I also agree with Paul. I don't think we should be worried about whether or not this decision gets appealed or that the conditions get appealed. I mean, I've said I need a sidewalk. I need a sidewalk at this site in order to approve it. So however that happens, if we're willing to condition it to that, that's great. But if not, then I don't think I can support it.
Okay, I have maybe a question for Jay at this point. So Jay, if, and maybe this just goes into the specificity of the condition, but would there ever be a scenario where Lee was comfortable and would voted yes based on what she understood the condition to be, and then just the condition was appealed, and then sidewalk is removed, and then that's not what she voted on? Could that ever be a scenario? Or is
Well-
the whole thing would be, it's predicated on a condition, and so if that were removed, then I just want clarity around that point.
Yeah, I don't think, if what you're saying is if the Housing Appeals Committee removed a condition, then the rest of the decision would essentially be automatically rescinded and revert to a denial. I don't think we can do that. I think we have to approve it or not approve it. So I don't think we can be in both camps if that's your question. So I think that Lee had it right, that if she's going to condition it in terms, and Paul, in terms of what she feels is important, it should be done perhaps, at least in public, without respect to what may happen at the Housing Appeals Committee. And if they choose to pick apart the conditions, then we're going to have to live with it, and it would be them doing it, not you, I think is kind of where we'd be ending up there. I don't think we can be both an approval and a denial.
Okay, that's helpful. Does that help you? Okay. All right, so Dave, you had this idea about talking about perils. Would you like, perils of a yes or a no vote. Would you like to start?
Sure. Sure. And I feel very badly for Lee. She's being torn apart. It just reminds me of James Dean and Rebel Without a Cause. Remember he said, "You're driving me crazy." Well, I think that's what we're doing to Lee. I'll buy a 16-ounce martini later on. I think we need to make it or break it. That's what I honestly think. Time's up. And as far as I'm concerned, the Housing Committee is going to take this condition that we put on there and throw it out. I don't think they're going to allow it to stand, because Penrose will make the case it's not economically feasible. The town of Chatham has no right forcing us to build this. And if they don't want to do it, they're not going to do it. And I think the Housing Committee would back them up. So we would have done all of this, unfortunately, for nothing. So I would say, if Lee feels it's worth it to her, okay. Okay. But I don't think it will be. I honestly don't, but I don't know. I'm just, what I think, So I would like to see us vote.
I just have a question. What would the perils of denying it be then?
Well, the peril of denying it is that they could go to the HC, but it would be on the whole thing. The whole thing. So, okay, that's the risk we take, but we have a better chance, I think, of being successful because of our mutual concerns about safety. I mean, not a one of us, and we've given very different, my description and told what happened is very different than the others, But we're basing this on safety. We're talking about lives. We're not talking about what color the building is or how many toilets and that kind of stuff. This is sort of serious business, So that's, but it puts you, Lee, and I'm so sorry, it puts you in a terrible position. It does. And I wish I could take you out of it, but I can't. But I really wish I could.
Ginny? So I know, we have a choice, and we can go to the vote now, or we can have conditions crafted. At least we could have Jay and Sarah write up something that would meet Paul's requirements with respect to approval. And Lee's as well, and then take the vote on that. I'm not sure which is the best thing to do, but I guess that's how I see where we are right now, which rock and which hard place we're in between. So I really could go either way. I think I do support the project. I think we've done a good job of in this case, and I was saying about this earlier, and you mentioned too about, so, we had some we had some opposition to the Main Street project, and it came from abutters and various other people. But it seemed to me that, and we made adjustments based on some of that. And it seemed to me that by and large, many of those objections and things were, and our responses to them and conditions, I think, were kind of around issues of screening and separation and things like that. We've heard a lot of opposition to this project that, at least in my mind, as I see it, much of it is the intent of it has been, no, shoot this thing down. We don't want this. And I've heard that, I feel like I've heard that more with this project than with the Main Street project. If we go ahead and write up the conditions and then take our vote, and the vote is, it goes 3-2, I think that perhaps it would be a better expression of at least how I feel at this point, given all the work and input we've done on it. I think I would rather do that as entertain a denial today.
I could just add to that. It seems to me that we have the opportunity to vote for the project based on conditions, and we can vote individually on those conditions that we think are important. And if one of those is that a sidewalk be constructed, and it does not pass us as a condition by a 3-2 vote, then it's not a part of the conditions. If we do pass it as a condition, it is one of the conditions, and then the appeal process can be followed with respect to that, as well as with respect to the balance of the conditions that we provide. And it seems to me probably, although I'm not an expert in this area, but it seems to me that Penrose could decide whether they do or don't want to go with the balance of the approved conditions by us versus the construction of the sidewalk, if that's the one that does not get a 3-2 vote in favor of it. So is that not a possibility, that we simply go ahead with the conditions that we want to have, whether we can put them all together today or at the next vote, and then decide whether the sidewalk is one of those conditions, vote it up or down, and then the chips will fall as they do.
Okay. Dave, you had something else?
Yeah, I think we need to put this off until September 3rd. I think it's the fairest thing we can do for Lee. I really do. That, and we can talk about conditions however you want, but that's the end of it. I mean, even though maybe we don't want to vote, we got to vote on the September 3rd, whether we like it or not. Correct, Sarah?
Yeah, we have to, the decision has to be stamped in with the town clerk by September 15th, but
Yeah.
the last available Thursday
Oh,
is
that's it,
September
okay.
3rd.
So I really would suggest that we forward to September 3rd, where we will continue this, and maybe we'll have a change of heart, or change of mind, or change of somebody, but I think that's what we should do at this time.
Well, I'm hearing that too. Sarah, we do have that on our calendar, right? September 5th.
I've booked the large meeting room in the event that we needed it, so
Right.
yes, we do have the room
So
available.
We have that.
And my understanding that in the meantime, we would have Jay Tellerman drafting the conditions based on our discussions today,
Yeah.
so that we can then vote up or down any of the other conditions aside from the sidewalk as well.
And also, he would want to have Lee's input so that his condition in regard to her idea is exactly what she wants, not just we might, okay?
That's fine.
Okay?
So So they would, Jay would be incorporating, the laundry list here,
Yeah,
and
we
then.
all have notes.
That's right.
Yeah, and I think that's an appropriate vote for us to have seen what the final drafting is, say yes or no to this one, yes or no to that one,
Right.
and yeah.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I like that too. Oh.
Does town council need any further clarification?
Okay.
Ask him, yeah.
I was just asking if town council needed any further clarification on any of the suggested conditions, things that are being incorporated for further review on September 3rd by the board members, just so we can try to have it as specific as possible in the draft.
So I think the other conditions, I think I have a handle on, and we might tweak it a little on the 3rd. First of all, what time on the 3rd?
I believe I have the room booked for 2 o'clock, but I can do whatever time is necessary that works for you as well.
It's fine. I just need to be, I have a special town meeting in a town that is starting at, I think, 6:30 or 7. So I just have to be done like an hour before that.
Can we do it,
So-
can we do it at noon upstairs?
I think even 2
that's all right.
o'clock would be fine.
Yeah, I do too.
We can do it in the parking lot at noon.
Okay.
I would like to just go over one more time. I mean, I think the gist of Lee's condition is sidewalk on the project side and along the frontage of the project side, or at the applicant's option on the opposite side of the street.
Correct.
If there's further details with respect to how it gets connected or something like that, I can add that. But I think that that's what I'd be looking for. And Lee is certainly free to kind of put her thoughts in writing an email to me, just not to the whole board, because I don't want to be deliberating outside of a meeting. But the basics of it is do it on your side, which we have the authority to impose, or at their option, if they can make it happen, do it on the other side.
Correct. That's how yeah. And the paved, the lit, the ADA,
Yeah, that's.
Compliant.
Yeah, I would add that ADA compliance, compliance with all other town requirements for sidewalks. I think that the lighting on the sidewalk, if it's on the frontage, is less vital than the lighting on the bike path, is what I've heard from some of the board members, because the sidewalk on the frontage is going to have some more visibility than the bike path, which gets significantly darker. So pulling that from some of Paul's comments. But otherwise, I get the gist of it. I have notes, and I'm sure Sarah is taking notes on some of the other conditions, which I think are kind of thumbs up, thumbs down kind of things. Sarah's already done a really good job putting together a draft decision based on the Main Street project. And so she and I just have to go through that and make sure things match up and are appropriate. I'm going to beef up the findings a little bit in and around sidewalks. While you all were discussing it, I was reviewing the zoning bylaws as well in terms of making links to the requirements under the zoning bylaws for assurances for pedestrian access, because we'd be required to find a route in the local requirements, which we have through multifamily special permit site plan review. So that's something else that I'm going to be adding. Otherwise, I think I can get this done with Sarah's help. We'll kind of work together. Ginny and I are in pretty regular contact about things as well. And if Lee wants to add any more details, that's fine, but I'd like to keep it to just those two board members right now, just for open meeting law purposes.
Okay, can I make a comment about the church condition? So, and maybe it's not fair for me to say this, because I know I did say that I'm inclined to not even put any conditions and not support it, because we've just passed consensus, I believe. But anyway, I have concerns about, if we did condition it to the meeting house side, the west side, I'd like to stop there, because I think the church conditions throw in, number one, it creates this mid-block crosswalk, which Penrose's own traffic engineer was against. So to me, that just seems like a problem. Also, with the church, I don't know what's the red tape there. Does it have to go all the way to the diocese? Does it, I don't know what that would require. That just seems like it could be unnecessarily complicating our choice here. Timelines, is that fair for me to even bring that up?
I think it's entirely fair, and that's, part of the purpose of deliberations. I do think that doing something not on our project locus requires us to engage in pulling on a thread a little bit, because it does bring in other issues. The diocese, well, not just the church's approval, but like you said, the diocese, the town or the county or the state may have to get involved as well. It becomes a lot of what ifs. I think it's certainly a lot cleaner for us to require it on the project side. I assume we're just talking about the project side,
Yeah.
because I don't think we could condition it on any infrastructure beyond the project frontage.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Can I raise something on,
Sure.
just thinking through and with what Paul discussed about the bike path and maintaining the snow and ice and all. And I just want to raise the question, and I don't know if it wants to be addressed, and how a condition might be written up. But it's not unusual in snow removal situations, it's not unusual for sidewalks to have snow remain on them for depending on the amount of snow and all. The town has different priorities about plowing sidewalks. So I don't know if we want to take that into any consideration in terms of what we might say about snow removal, maybe somehow a standard whereby we tie the condition to the town's schedule. I don't know, but I don't think the town schedule is a fixed thing necessarily. So I'm concerned a little bit about making a very specific condition about keeping the path clear that the town doesn't even follow on its own sidewalks. So that's the consideration.
Well, I hear that. My thought there is that all the more reason to have the Penrose owned sidewalk, because then there at least would be a way out that they would own and maintain. And then that would be nice if the other path, but if that's the only path, I think you've just reinforced the fact that could be a problem.
I don't think that I think that even if they developed the sidewalk on the right-of-way, they wouldn't then own it. It's in the right-of-way, it's not on their property, it's not on the property. So, and I think this was brought up at some point, if the sidewalk gets built even on that side, which doesn't have another owner, it's the town, but it's the right-of-way, and so if it's the town or the county, whoever owns it, that's where the sidewalk's going to get put, so it's not going to be on their property. So it's going to.
Can I ask for a clarification? Because my understanding was that we were going to be requiring it on their property, not within the right-of-way. I don't know how far the right-of-way goes onto their property. I don't have a plan in front of me.
Jay's correct. You are correct, Jay. It's not the right-of-way, it's on their property.
Hang on, Sarah's looking at something. Jay?
Madam Chair? Lee, are you comfortable having what you wanted to do restricted to the Penrose property? Because that's what they've been talking about here.
Well, that was my first option, but in lieu of that option, I was going to give Penrose another option, which would be to work with the easterly abutter and negotiate easement or right-of-way to put the sidewalk there.
Okay, Okay.
but which would include a crosswalk.
Okay.
And even though some people say that it's not an ideal place for a crosswalk, I don't care. I want a sidewalk, I want a crosswalk there.
Okay. Need a motion?
Did you have something else, Dave?
No, I was just going to look at the site plan to see where the
Okay.
property line is, but that's not,
Okay, well, we're looking up the answer for Jay.
okay.
Do you?
It appears to be, the right-of-way does appear to extend onto the unimproved portion of their property, so to speak. So it would be the sidewalk, that's just based on what I'm seeing as a plan, so it would be set off a bit from the roadway.
Jay, if I could add a little something to that knowledge, what you see when you go over there and you go beyond the edge, you look down, what you're looking at is Route 137 in the old days. So when it was straightened out and refigured, I don't know what happened to the route. And Dave, you, right, what I'm saying?
Yeah, I saw-
Yeah. So that's what you're looking at. You're looking at the old Route 137, which might or might not complicate things. I don't know.
A further complication,
Yeah.
perhaps, but.
I don't, yeah, that's right. Okay.
Anyway, I just thought that, I was thinking more about the snow removal on the bike path, part, so.
Okay. Okay, anything else? Anyone have? We're gonna, I too like the suggestion of taking a little time to work through what we've heard today. We have, I'm not gonna say it's confusion, but we have some, it's not a straightforward thing that we heard today. So I think that taking the time to just regroup on that, give Jay some time and Sarah, and then we come back on at 2 o'clock on September 5th. So, yeah, anyone want to make a,
September 3rd.
oh, September 3rd, okay.
We need a motion.
I'll move to continue this to September 3rd, 2026 at 2 PM.
Dave seconds and votes yes.
That's continuing our deliberations.
Yeah.
Paul votes yes.
Veach votes yes.
I vote yes.
I vote yes.
And Ginny votes yes.
And I vote no.
Okay.
I'll move to adjourn.
Dave seconds and votes yes.
Paul votes yes.
Ginny votes yes.
I vote yes.
I vote yes. Sorry.
He had to get his 2 cents in.